we'll have Ann give us a summary on the technology fee study.
So I'm down here just by virtue of being that we needed a name, and it's the point person. I am one of 8 people who are in this room right now or on the phones that were actually at that meeting. So anyone want to give it the report instead of me? No. Okay. So just as a reminder for everyone, this is a study committee that was actually appointed by the board. Clint Patterson, as the Finance Committee Chair, is also the chair of this committee. The first meeting was mid-December. From this committee, or the Joint Committee, John Pfeiffer and Michelle, James, and Brad are members. The other members include Clint Patterson, Sally Baker, who is from Austin, and then Peggy Habner, who is not here today, but also a member of this committee. And then attending from SELCO staff are myself, Donovan, Cheryl, Tyler, and then always good, since we're talking money and needing spreadsheets, is Jen Schrader. So the first part of the meeting was just very similar to the start of this meeting. We looked at the charge and a timeline that the executive committee had approved in September. Donovan reviewed our current technology environment, and then we also looked at the current financials and some long-term history. We looked at the history of and reviewed the details with regards to the current fee structure, which has been in place for 10 years. So it really is, it's a good time to look at this. Donovan and I had put together a survey looking at and asking other consortia, federated consortia, if they charge for fees and what their factors and how often they review it. So we found that not a lot of regions review their fee structure any sooner than we do. And they, by and large, use the same, similar or the same factors to count and to make their assessments. So we had a lot of discussion about how should we count things and how to generate those dollars. And so the final decision was that people who had ideas for factors or formulas or ways of doing it better should get their suggestions to Jen Schrader by the 29th of January. She would then take all of the information and suggestions on multiple spreadsheets and bring those back to the committee for a February meeting to take a look at, if you were to charge on the basis of every read book in a library, what would it look like? Or if you did it on this factor or that factor. So she is collecting whatever suggestions people have right now for factors to be considered. So the hope still is that we will be able to find a formula that is easy to understand, is fair, generates sufficient dollars so that we don't have to cut services, and can be taken to the board in April for at least general endorsement, maybe not approval, public meetings with the library directors to make sure that people understand what would be happening, and then approval by July. Should have had the timeline in front of me. That might have been approval in April. So approval in July, with the idea that the libraries would have seen actual numbers to affect their public library budgets, and we would have to do something with knowing that by the time the board would approve new fee structures for the schools, we would have to somehow cycle you in with time to plan. So the committee met, had a lively discussion. There had been a discussion during that meeting about the possibility of decreasing SELCO's cash reserves and going for a line of credit. The Finance Committee, I was directed to do some research. I did that. The Finance Committee then got that report, had a lengthy discussion at the Finance Committee meeting, and so I was directed to share the results of their discussion with you as well. So when you got the 13-page report on lines of credit and cash reserves. If you were wondering why all of a sudden am I getting this, it was to make sure that the committee knew what was happening. So, questions?
And yeah, I did have one question, Ann, about that, because I've been talking with Sally a little bit, and maybe this isn't the right committee. Maybe I should ask this separately. So just tell me if I should. I was wondering, has the essential problem been defined, or is it just an overall look, or is there a specific improvement that people are looking for? Oh, for example, one thing I thought I heard was volatility was an issue. So is that the essential issue, or are there several, or?
Well, I can tell you from my own perspective and the perspective of staff. Certainly we know that there was the letter that came from 16 libraries last year who had a very valid complaint that their automation fees had gone up substantially over the last few years. And so the finance committee and the board was reacting to the fact that we had concerns raised by libraries. From an administrative point of view, I think that anytime you have libraries who are consistently are seeing increases sufficient that it is difficult for them to justify locally, and at the same time, you have on the opposite end of the spectrum libraries that have had zero increase, and actually had libraries in both types, school and public, that ended up with reductions in their automation fees. To me, that seems that the formula is imbalanced. I don't know, maybe I would say volatile. I've used the word volatile, but maybe that's not the correct adjective. So I personally would like to find something that is fairer, that as local CERC or local holdings or whatever the multiplying factor turns out to be, is that we end up with something where we aren't seeing sites that have 17% growth in their fees and a library at the same time that's seeing a 13% reduction. And that's the kind of thing that we had. And so, obviously the people who wrote the letter last year had valid complaints, but we also didn't hear anything from the libraries who were at zero increase or who were having to pay less. And so how do we try to make it fair?
Okay, thanks.
And Sally, and you can tell Sally that we all thought she was fairly brilliant because she did comment the fact that no matter what formula we come up with, somebody's not going to be happy. So she was our voice of reason who kept saying, we're not going to be able to make everybody happy. She said that about 3 times during the meeting. But again,
well, happier can be a goal, less miserable.
So, John, Michelle, James, Brad, anything to add? Okay. So just to make this committee, especially those of you who aren't wearing both hats, sort of know that this is going on, and we don't want to exclude you since you provide vital advice on the management of the automation system.
Okay, anything else there?